All right, we get to Fledge 3. We're going to talk about this one over here. It's called SelfSpark. We found them. They were in Singapore. It was this group right here. It was founded by an expat American who wanted to bring it back to the States. They were running a weekend series for self-help. Sounds a little weird, but they had a bunch of successful iterations of this in Singapore. We thought it was a good idea to bring it back to the States. In terms of timing, by the time we got to this stage, Startup Weekend had done like 1,000 startup weekends. And we said, well, if there's enough entrepreneurs to do 1,000 startup weekends, there's even more people who want to improve their lives. So we should be able to copy that. The movement of improving your life and tracking that mathematically is called quantized self. Just think Fitbit. Just think how popular Fitbits are now versus, you never saw a Fitbit back in 2013. And just the idea of getting help on a YouTube video, right? YouTube was pretty new in 2013. So just we thought we were hitting the right timing. And in terms of funding, they didn't need any money. So everything they did in Singapore was bootstrapped off of successful events. And since this is really an event company, we thought, okay, if we run a successful event, it will fund the next event. They'll fund the next event and onward. So we thought we're good. Like the little bit of money Fledge provided would be enough. Then what did we learn? Well, we learned that there was this team in Singapore that put it on, not just the founder, but he had built a great team and he did not succeed at replicating that here in the States. We needed an event that succeeded in order to pay for the next event. And he and I clashed on an opinion on how to do that. I told him, pick one city, do a series of events in one city, build up the scale of what you're doing in one city, and then go to the next city. And he said, no, my team is good enough that we can do, I think it was like Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco, basically in subsequent months. And he was wrong because they couldn't get the first event right. So they got all 3 events. None of them made money, and it failed. And if you can't, again, if you got the wrong product, can't get enough people to show up. In this case, probably just didn't have enough connections in one city. He should have built one team in one city who themselves had enough reach to get 50 people in a room, 50 paid people in a room. That probably would have been enough to do the next event in the same city and onward. I still like this idea. I haven't seen it done again, but this is not the right team to do it. On to number 4. This was our first time we did a whole bunch of international companies. So Fledge 4 was 3 from the US. Broad Street Maps was a US company doing business over in Africa, and 3 from Tanzania. One expat team from Canada, pair of brothers, one expat team from California, 2 people who met at the California Institute of the Arts, their MBA program, and then our first native African entrepreneur. So which one do you think succeeded and failed on that one? Well, 2 of them failed to ship. This was the moment in time in the startup world, or in the accelerator startup world, where we started working with companies with revenues instead of doing idea stage. So our numbers of failed to ship goes down. Broad Street Maps, that was the one American team doing business in Africa. It was 3 women who were just fresh out of college, big ideas, never really found a product that anyone wanted to buy. That's a common problem when you work with idea stage companies. Caribou, in fact, had a great idea. This is the Canadians. They had a great idea. They put it out into the market, but it took them too long. The idea was that we got to get rid of the kerosene lanterns. Still a problem out there in the world. They need to be replaced with solar lanterns. Solar lanterns themselves were too expensive that year. So they said, all right, we're going to design, these are Canadians, so we call these pucks. We're going to design a puck-shaped light that's solar powered, but the solar panel is not attached. And we're going to sell them to dukas. This is what a duka looks like in East Africa. This is a Tanzanian company again. And we're going to sell the kit to the duka. They get 2 pucks and a solar panel. And I don't remember the exact price, but we had to get it down to like, let's call it $40 for the kit. And then what the duka would do is rent the puck to the customer for the price of kerosene, whatever it would cost to light up the kerosene for like 2 or 3 days. And then they would just return it to the duka and pay basically the equivalent of kerosene, and they would have a solar light. And that solar light could also charge their cell phone. You'll hear about that in a second. Well, what happened? Didn't have a ton of funding in this company. Two young guys from Canada. We did have enough funding to get the product built. It got designed and built in China, but it took like 18 months or 24 months before we had them in our hands in Tanzania. And two things were wrong. One was the kit was like $55 instead of 40. And the ratios are right. I don't remember the exact numbers. It was too expensive. It was more than kerosene. And the second thing was, by then solar lanterns kept coming down in price, and they were just about affordable by the time we got these out. And they were, about the same price as ours. It costs a lot of money to make a physical product. And if you want it done well, you got to iterate on it a few times. If you want it done quickly, you have to spend money on it. And we didn't have either the time or the money. And so we just missed the market. Our timing was wrong. We missed it by 6 or 9 months. And in terms of money, $100,000 would have made the difference for this company. If they had $100,000 more, we probably would have got the product out in 9 months and at least learned from that experience and got the second product out 9 months after that. And that would have been the right product. But we missed it. The other one that failed was Jewel Bar. That's the two women from California. And they were already succeeding when we found them. So they had a nice pitch. This is their old pitch. There were 22 million people in Tanzania with cell phones back then. It's probably 30 million now. 60% of the population. You got to keep in mind that half the population is under 18 still. So that's like basically every adult has a cell phone. But there's only 12% access to the grid in Tanzania. It's not a well-distributed electrical network. So what they did, I said California Institute of the Arts, they designed a solar-powered kiosk that would charge cell phones. And they designed a great business model of micro franchises. And they would basically hand one of these carts. They had 20 when we met them. They'd hand the cart to an entrepreneur in a village that was off the main road. So hard to get to in terms of power, way off the electric grid. And they would just charge a monthly fee for cell phone charges. And they had a box inside the thing that would count how many cell phone charges so they could keep track. And here's what went wrong. Well, we gave them enough funding, and they found enough funding for like 10 more of these kiosks. They upgraded them all to have better batteries and better battery supply managers and whatnot. But that one box that charged the battery, it failed. It failed in all the new kiosks. And the kiosks were out in villages, not on the paved roads. So just the cost of getting the new piece of equipment all the way out to the micro franchisees was enormous. And the setback that we had to spend the money to bring in new equipment and get it out there was basically all the money we were going to spend on growing this company. And because it was expat Americans running it, well, you can't just pay the expat Americans $100 a month or $1,000 a month, right? They need a real salary. So you need to get this company, in order to break even, really needed like 100 of these kiosks. And we couldn't get there because we had this one snafu. And once we had the snafu, that was the end of the run, the end of the opportunity to find funding. So basically one flawed piece of equipment that couldn't handle 95-degree Fahrenheit weather in Tanzania put an end to the company. And the solar lanterns were coming along, and they all have plugs with USBs where you can charge your phone. And so the need for this is less and less over the years. And the cost of rolling it out didn't go down. And so, it failed.